Today's guest, Louis-Julien, built his business the same way he climbed, deliberately and without shortcuts. We unpack growth, people, and why patience is underrated. What originally inspired you or maybe drew you to the outdoor space?
I'm originally from Quebec City. Generally people in that province are really outdoorsy. Fishing, hunting was part of sort of the family traditions. So that's kind of how I got acquainted with the outdoor.
What do you think it is about Quebec? You said generally people are, outdoorsy in that space. What is it about the space that makes it kind of innate?
It's a beautiful province. There's lots of great space. The water is close. It's great. The mountains are fairly big for out east. I think there's lots to do there. It snows a lot. It's part of the culture, really, to enjoy the outdoors.
Yeah, I mean, it is stunning. I completely agree. We've been out there several times.
Yeah.
Did you grow up in the outdoors? Like what drew you to it?
No, I actually grew up in a pretty modest family. My mom was a single mom. I have two sisters that are quite a bit older than me. But somehow there was a big attraction to outdoor. I had a mentor as a kid that was really outdoorsy, and that was a big part of influence in my life at that time. And oddly enough, I got involved in bird watching through him because he was a biologist and knew a lot about that stuff. And it became a small passion at the time. And then that drew me to the outdoor, to fishing and hunting back then. And then I sort of grew out of this and I was looking more for adventure sport, if you like. So as a teenager, I started climbing, and I started climbing through ice climbing. I'm from, like I said, Quebec City. Just beside Quebec City is this big waterfall called the Montmorency Fall. Right beside that's the best place to learn ice climbing. So I in high school, we finally found somebody to teach us, and then we started climbing every weekend, essentially. Yeah.
I've heard it's funny that you mentioned that, because I heard from several people that climbing is one of those sports that once you do it, you never want to stop.
Yes, it's a little obsessive at times, for sure.
And what is it about ice climbing? It sounded like that was your did you do ice climbing before any other sort of climbing? How did you know that you wanted to do ice climbing?
Yeah, I think we just wanted to climb, honestly. And then we finally found somebody that would help us learn how to climb. It was middle of winter. We started with ice climbing, and right away after this, that merged into rock climbing and then mountaineering. And then I just kind of did all the aspects of the sport.
So at some point in your story, you then moved to Alberta, or did you start your business in Quebec and then move to Alberta?
No, there was a few little business along the way back then. I worked forestry quite a bit. I had a logging business with a friend in my early 20s. Opportunity weren't really awesome back in the day in Quebec. So I had a small climbing school for a little bit when I was there. And then in 96, I wasn't really seeing a place to go in my life over there. So I decided to move out west to become a guide. So the original thing that drew me to Canmore was to become an ice climber full-time and then be a guide. And that was the sort of, again, following that passion for the outdoor.
You said in your early 20s, you started a logging business. Were you always were you a serial founder? Was founding businesses or being an entrepreneur something that was kind of innate within you? Yeah,
and I kind of realized later that I had a passion for business, more than a passion for some of the things that I started business in, for sure. I've had small business like the climbing school, the logging business, but I didn't have 40 businesses. I just had a handful of them, yeah.
What do you attribute that sense of entrepreneurship to? Was it something that you thought about actively, or was it something that just came naturally?
I think for me it was, and I kind of understood that a little bit later, but it's a bit about agency. It's being able to sort of run my own show, be in charge of my destiny. I really like entrepreneurship for that. Nobody could decide for me what was going to happen. I sort of had a hand in what was happening. So I think that's why entrepreneurship has always been a bit seductive for me. And I think coming from a humble background as a family too, I could see that if I wanted to accelerate the upside, that was a pathway that was going to work for me.
When you started your first business, or I guess maybe let's go a step back. Did you ever work for somebody else before you started a business?
Yes. I worked for a lot of people in a lot of different areas. Yeah, for sure.
What did you learn from those experiences?
It's interesting you asked me this, because this is when I talk about the business often, I talk about the things that I didn't want to repeat. Like in Quebec, there was a lot of union. I remember working at the local grocery store, and it didn't matter how good you were and how many bucks you could unpack in an hour. If there was some dude in front of you, you just couldn't get the next job. And that I found immensely frustrating in my life there. Working tree planting, I learned about piecework. So you put in a big effort, you get a big paycheck. As a guide, I realized after a while that I was like, oh, I'm the end of the line. I get paid by the days. I can only do 1 day a day. So that I'm maxed out. So scalability became a thing that I was thinking about a lot. So that's some of those things that drew me into business. And then I've had like shitty boss, like people that not really productive to work for, bad experiences like that, not getting paid. And I was like, oh, these are the things that really don't want to repeat for people. I just really want to improve on those things.
It's funny how you pick up these things that you don't want to be before you pick up the things that you do.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So you moved to Canmore for opportunity to be a guide.
Yeah.
Walk me through that period of life and then how that transpired to mountain exposure.
So yeah, in 96, I moved to Canmore. I kind of got this romantic idea that I can become a guide. I'm a pretty good climber, not extremely good, but I'm good enough to do this. And then I get enrolled in the course, do the exam. It was the fall 96 and pass. And then started, well, at that time you became an assistant rock guide. And then I passed that exam. And then the following summer I was able to start working for Yamnuska Mountain School, which still exists today. It's probably the best mountain school in the country still. And then did that for about, 96, call it 6 years, where I would work in the summer as a guide. And in the winter, because I wasn't a skier and I was an ice climber, it made it a bit more complicated for me to be allowed to guide ice climbing. So often I'd work construction in the winter. And I did that for a bunch of years. And then we're talking about upsides and things earlier. I realized at some point, I was like, oof, I'm living in this town that's becoming probably one of the most expensive towns in the country. And I'm having a real tough time making a good living. So and just because of my construction skill at the time, I helped building the climbing wall that was at the Banff Center. Now I work on the construction, ended up being hired with another friend, Chris, as the manager. And then through that experience, all of a sudden I had time. I wasn't guiding as much, I had time to train, and my climbing got way better. And then the ice climbing, it was a moment in ice climbing where mixed climbing was a big thing, where you go transition from climbing a piece of rock to a big icicle that's dangling, if you like. And then that became like a big thing, and we were just at the forefront, so it was a really exciting time. So me, a few guys from Canmore and girls, we would be just right there trying to do those new things and that exciting moment in the sport. And then I got good enough that I would go to competition, got some sponsorship. I wasn't really top 3 guy, I was more like top 20, but just enough. But through those sponsorship, I would help at the event, teach some classes, and then the opportunity came for me to become a sales rep for some of those brands because of my credibility in the sport. So that's when I transitioned into what I'm doing now. Excuse me. So then, sort of long story short, I had all the contact possible. I was representing a bunch of climbing brands. Then I had worked retail before I understood what the sales rep was doing. Then I became like mostly focused on climbing sales rep at the time, which is like the typical sales rep is sort of running around Western Canada. You get your laptop, your cell phone, your visiting store, you help them purchase product, you train their staff. And then hopefully you can create some more business. That was sort of the start of the new job, if you like.
Is it common to go from, the sales rep that you're describing to having a full-fledged business and staff underneath you and that sort of thing? Or was that an opportunity that you identified yourself?
I don't think it's that common. Like if I look around me, like I look at our rep association here, I'd say probably maximum 20% of us have agency versus just sales rep. I'm having success. The dealer are like, okay, this guy's not leaving. He's persistent. He's trying to make this happen for us. They started giving me leads on brand. They started recommending me. So that word of mouth became really important. Then we got a few good brands. Then I was doing quite well on my own. But then I needed a bit of help. So I hired the first person. I wasn't yet quite thinking full-fledged agency at the time, but I was like, okay, there's something more here. And then shortly after that, I realized I was like, oh, we could scale this now. If I can teach those skills to other people, if I can support them, we can blow this up a little bit. And then that's when we started building the outdoor side of the agency. So by, I think 2008, 2009, I think there's 3 of us working in the agency together. And then it just sort of grew organically from there. And then we were just focused on the outdoor business at the time.
During that growth phase, you got into it because you were passionate about the outdoors, you were a climber, that sort of thing. During that growth phase, the business starts to demand different things that maybe you can't anticipate from the beginning. I mean, obviously, like you said, you had experience in different businesses, but were you able to maintain, the same level of climbing that you wanted to and doing these other activities while you were building your business?
I mean, it was challenging. Like I didn't, I think it was building a family was more challenging on this than the business. The business allowed me to travel a lot. We'd often you go to Revelstoke, you can go ride your bike or go rock climbing or whatever. You could always kind of make it work as you travel through different places and organize your time. We were Canmore based at the time. It was with a little bit of organization, you could kind of make time for the outdoors. But it certainly tapered off after a while. And then the climbing thing is a pretty passionate sport. And I think after a while, I was just like, okay, I think I've done what I can do here. And I got interested in mountain biking again and fly fishing and other sport, which were less time consuming than climbing was at the time.
So from a rep perspective, you started with obviously climbing gear, and since then you've expanded beyond that. What was that? Was that a conscious thought, or was it just a strategic business decision?
It was actually climbing was in a lot of ways just the pretext to get started. I knew that climbing was not going to get us to the next place, but it was a great way to show competency because it's an extremely technical sport. People knew we were competent. And then from there, we attracted brands that are more apparel brand, more gear brand, and that add more skills to them. So that was certainly part of the sort of the plan in the back of my mind is we need to get known, and then from there we'll acquire better and better brands.
And I'm always curious about your first hire. There's so many mathematical sequences or it's philosophies that people have about when it's time to kind of hire your first person. What was that for you? Were you just overworked? What did it look like?
2 things, obviously being I've always ran the business with not borrowing money, just kind of organically on growing it with my own money. So it was a conscious decision to say, I'm going to take a pay cut and hire somebody so we can scale. It wasn't I'm going to hire somebody to make more money. It was more I want to scale the business. I felt like if I scaled it up, it added security for me because we could get more brands. We could bring more revenue and then also add security for our people over time. So that was the decision at the time. And then the person, Earl Takahashi at the time, he just forgot how we met at this point, but he was in our community, great connection. Early in the business, you need somebody that has the ability to do 1,000 things. Not that specialized, but really well-skilled and well-rounded skills. And Earl was awesome that way. He could build display, he could sell stuff, he was really social. He was doing all the sports, so he was a great fit at the time for us.
Bootstrapping is something that you mentioned in there, which is also, everybody has an opinion on. Was there a reason that you didn't take funding or maybe you didn't want to build a business in the early stages? Or was it just because that's how it worked out?
I understood that. I just didn't understand how that was going to work. And it was the simple math for me was and I'm still like that. And try to run it the simplest way possible seemed to make sense to me because I could understand it. I could write it out on a napkin, Early on, I remember there was a stage that's after we moved to Calgary. And I remember the line of credit always had a bit of money on it or something. There was obviously a little bit of credit, but never big amount. And I remember saying one Monday I came into the office, like, okay, this is enough. There's going to be zero debt moving forward. And I remember when 6 months later, like we'd clear everything, credit card, everything was getting paid all the time. And how much more cash flow we had because of that. How much interest we weren't paying because of that. Like seeing the result on the P&L right away. And I found that quite empowering, to be honest. And almost every founders that I know that had massive struggle, they're because of borrowing. That's what is the main source of trouble in my experience. So that's why I never was really into it.
You and I share a similar philosophy on that front. I feel strongly about that as well. But it's insane. It's crazy to look at some P&Ls and look at how much people are paying on interest just to keep, profit to interest rates or ratios rather are super fascinating.
We're already taking a fair amount of risk, working really hard. And so you watch people and it's like, who's working for who here, And you're supposed to be a client at the bank, but I'm not sure everybody's a client at the bank. They're more like bank employees, So, yeah.
It's really interesting and from my experience, just through conversation, unique thought or action to decrease your salary to hire your first employee. I think most people kind of work themselves into the ground before they make that choice. How did that affect you? Was it something that you wanted to maintain the amount of time that you had? You said you were building a family at the same time. How did that affect you?
Well, I've always come from a humble background, like I said at the beginning. So I never had massive needs. I like nice stuff like everybody else and cool bikes and things, but the effect wasn't that deep. It was actually quite empowering to have other people there to back you up when you needed support. It probably affected wealth building for a little bit, right? I think the early days of the agency, I was probably taking home a little bit more than I do right now, but I wasn't building a business. Now we're building a business that our employees are part owner of. It's worth something. There's maybe an exit at some point or a buy-in for more people. There's a lot more there than there was when I was just collecting a bigger paycheck, right? So I think that's the main difference, is just thinking of the scalability happens in a different way. And it's like, you're just getting rid of the instant gratification, really.
And is that something that you'd done for the first time in this current business, or had you thought about that in previous businesses as well? Because you mentioned earlier that you learned scalability from a previous job.
Yeah, I learned it from being around other things, but I'd never done it for myself. But I could see, for me, the agency was I didn't want to be the funnel where everything stopped, right? And I could see okay, if I sell you this jacket, and I sell you this jacket, and I sell this guy this jacket, on next Saturday, I'll be climbing someone. You're all going to be selling this jacket in your store. And then that seems to make sense to me. And then you'll call me on Monday because you need more. I'm not the one stopping this from happening. There's a bunch of people working together in the same direction to try to grow this.
What's the importance of truly believing in the product that you're selling? I think, there's a lot of stories about agencies and that sort of thing who just sell everything that they possibly can. It seems from all the research that I've done on you and your business that that's not the case for you. You're selecting brands that you stand behind. Compare those two kind of thoughts for me.
Yeah, we're mega disciplined about what brand we take on. What it looks like from the outside and what it is from the inside is maybe slightly different. We've probably worked for over 90 brands over the years. So just like the stock market, there's some good one and some bad one. We see ourselves as a mountain sport agency. So to us, it means outdoor. It means we don't do team sport. We don't do tennis racket. We don't do all the other things. We don't do lawn furniture. We only do mountain sport. We don't do all mountain sport, but that's what we do. So that helps sort of reducing. And then after this, we try to pick brands that are awesome and that we believe in. It's much easier for us to sell the product if I'm wearing outdoor research right now, right? It's super easy for me to talk about it. I use it every day, right? It is just And then the team is, when we bring them product they don't like, it's just not going to happen. They don't believe in it. And what better story to tell a true story, like something you're passionate about and you want to sell. I don't want to be a used car salesman, right? Like I think there's a lot of these cliche about sales that I certainly don't want to be part of. So there are lots goes into brand selection. Over the years, we've realized it's really about the people that we work with. We used to think it was about product. Now it's like, yes, product is a thing. There's a lot of good product, but who's working there? How easy they are to work with? Are they team focused? Do they want to grow with us? That's the kind of what we look at more now.
That's exemplified by a conversation we were having before we started rolling the cameras, which was that, maybe it's ideal to be at 13 staff, but we're at 12 because people matter more. Have you ever had a bad hire?
Oh, multiple. But not that many, like, to be fair. Like, we've had amazing people over the years. I've always believed that one of sort of the things that I want to create is a place where people can expand themselves and grow, because I love learning and I love growing myself. So if people can come here and grow inside the business, and like a lot of people came at the entry level that are manager here now. A lot of people went from here to become sales manager at awesome brands. There's been a lot of great progression to our business. And then there's been a few people that we've made mistake on. Sometimes it's life timing, I think, right? They're not bad people. They're just in the wrong spot. We've never had like horrible experience of somebody doing something horribly bad, but like there's been some that are not great. Our hiring process now is really strict and lengthy, I would say. We do 3 to 4 interviews with most people. I shouldn't say all of it, but we tend to fuck people around quite a bit.
How so?
I would say. We'll make first contact with them, or they make first contact with us. We make them book the next one. We make sure that they talk to 2 or 3 people on our team, but we don't really give them the information they need to do that. The team kind of is on to this now because they had to do that themselves. They'll ask them, okay, meet me at this coffee shop. And we look at all those interaction work, because that's the job of a rep, essentially. So we try to reproduce some of that stuff along the process. And also we make sure they get as comfortable as possible so they start showing who they are. And that makes a huge difference. By the time somebody gets to the 3rd interview here, we're probably quite interested in them. And then if we can, we'll go do an outdoor activity with them. Because that's the ultimate. Like, I've shut it down at that day with some people that I was sure I was going to hire because they didn't show up clean, or they a little bit late, or like went a bike ride and they ditch everyone. And I was like, well, you're not a team player. You're not going to work out here. We're not super elitist here. So we're kind of like foster that sort of, we try to like, we're pretty welcoming, and we're not all about the summit, right? We're more about the experience. So if people are more about the summit and the just performance, it's probably not going to work great with us. So we try to screen for all those things as we will.
I love that idea that, if you make somebody comfortable, then they're going to show their true colors, because it's not a new thought that people are performative in interviews and that sort of thing, right? Is this something that you learned over time, that you started doing, as you kind of realized that, or was it something that was important to you from the get-go?
This is something that's built over time, or we just realized that like 4 or 5 years ago, this is really key. And in the last 2 years, we really improved that process. We've also built a pipeline. We're like, oh, we're in sales. We build pipeline. So let's build a pipeline for people. So now we're collecting name. We see people in coffee shop. We see people in other business, and we put them in the pipeline. Some people don't know they're in the pipeline. Some we touch base with them monthly. And then when we need someone, we're like, these 3 people we should talk to. And that's made a huge improvement for us. Even just to understand who you want. You may not hire these people, but when the next person shows up, it's like, reminds me of this person. We're looking for this person 10 years ago. That's them, right? That's kind of like the sort of the game that we played at.
That's really interesting. It's almost like trait mapping too. You're like, oh, I need this person 10 years ago because they had this tenacity or this level.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I'm surprised more businesses don't do that. I mean, like you said, everybody has a sales pipeline, but why not on the back end?
It was a aha moment for sure. This is so simple, but it takes a lot of work, and often that's the tough part, right? Is doing the work, not the ideas.
You mentioned that a lot of the people are success stories because they go on to do other things. Maybe like I think your example was a sales rep at a reputable company or a sales manager rather. How do you feel about being a stepping stone for some people? You know, like in their career journey.
I think that's great. Like, what an amazing thing you can do for someone. We have like little contingency plan in our contract with Brand. We're like, hey, we want to be in the loop if this happens. But I can't expect people to be here for 20 years necessarily. If we don't, we can't help them grow for 20 years. If we have room to grow them for 20 years, that's great. But I think that's what better thing can you do for someone?
I think there's nothing better for an employee than to be able to map out their trajectory, right, and their growth plan. Is that something that you do with your employees?
Yeah, we try. That's a constant work in progress, but we do, like a 90-day review and stuff, and we encourage them to do this. We've had people that have left here with like a 6-month notice. Amazing. It's a bit weird. You're like, are you leaving? You're not leaving. You're still here.
Yeah.
But what an amazing thing to have that trust from people. It's like, hey, I'm going to tell you now. I'm planning a changing career. I'm planning on doing this, and they give us a huge heads up, and that means a lot to us. And it's great to make it an easy process for them as well.
You also said that some of your employees are part owners.
Yes.
Is that built into your compensation system? How does that work?
It's beside the compensation system. We have like a bonus type structure, but it's you can use your bonus to do this. So in a way it is. And if you do so, we'll give you more than you would have got in share that we would have given you as a bonus. And it allows our cash flow to stay healthy. Yes. Yeah.
How did you come up with that idea?
I don't have this huge legacy thing. Like, I'm not planning on leaving here with my name on a plaque or this. But I'm hoping that all this work goes somewhere for other people. I'm hoping that the people that are here will do better with it than I will. I believe that gives us a competitive advantage that people are owners. Right now, it's a small percentage of the company that's owned by the staff. I really hope to grow that in the next 5 years. What an amazing thing for any of our clients to talk to somebody that's invested in the business. And it's also, it is a form of compensation, right? Like there's a bigger upside for people. And then maybe they care about their decision a little bit more, which helps us in every way, including financially.
Do you find that like if you were to give somebody some piece of equity, and compare yesterday when they didn't to tomorrow when they do, that there's a significant difference in the way that they act and treat and, act around the business and do their job?
I think for some it does. I think there's this like, they're there to stay, and you can watch them make this small decision every day that like they're going to be here tomorrow. So I think there is, but it's not like a silver bullet. We've had employees that were owners that have left, or that we had to let go as well. So it's not perfect, but I see it in some people where it's they're just so bought in. It's so great to work with them because of that.
Can you identify traits or maybe actions or that sort of thing of people who, because I think the reason why I ask this is because I think there's so many businesses that are considering, equity share or some sort of structure to that liken, right? And as somebody who's done it and seen the benefits and drawbacks potentially, one being maybe some people are just motivated by having equity and others don't care at all, right? So what are the similarities among those two differences?
So far, in my experience, it's not deep enough to make big generalization, I think, but the people that are good with money seems to be more interested. They kind of understand the they know, maybe they do a little bit of investing on their own. And it helps them understand. And when you tell them, it's like, well, if we double the business, double the price of share. They maybe they're people that also see the long-term gains. Like, they're not so in the day-to-day. So I think that's one of the reasons maybe entry-level people may not be there as much as manager and people that have been around for longer. But yeah, if it's an instant gratification type, which is an interesting thing, right? Because we basically give people an extra 20% on their bonus if they make it into a share. Right? This is generous. It's a lot of money. And so many times, especially the last year, like the business wasn't amazing. Like it's been a pretty tough market condition. So the bonus are not big. Like they can live probably without the bonus and make that extra money, plus double that money if we double the business in the next 3 years. And they still will choose a $500 check, right? So, which is, I find that fascinating personally, and obviously it's my thing more than it's theirs. So I'm more the biggest believer here in what we're doing. But yeah, so I think instant gratification is probably not the personality type that's going to do that.
As a business owner, it's lonely, it's tough. We're facing all of these challenges on our own, or seemingly rather to some. We were speaking off camera. I didn't even know that you're actually you were part of EO as well. But communities like that, what's the importance of just having community, having people that you can talk to about business and the challenges and the wins as a business owner?
Yeah, like I said, I was part of EO for the better part of 4 years. I was in EO Grow before that. Amazing to have people that relate to what you're doing, that understand where you're at. Being an entrepreneur is quite, I was talking to a friend about this, a vulnerable act. And I think all your friends don't understand that, like, you just on your own decided that you're going to win or fail publicly. Because it's a very public thing that's happening, right? You're throwing yourself out there, you're trying to do this thing. And it's a pretty bold move for a lot of people, I think. I have a lot of respect for people that start business, especially some that are really in front of everyone, right? Because they're going to fail publicly if they do. And none of us like that. Some like it maybe better than others. But so having a group of people you can relate to, that you can share those concerns with is fantastic. I don't think bringing all your business problem home is always a really productive thing. And also it's not good inside the business either. I think when we're stressed about things, we don't need our team to necessarily have to shoulder that stress, because they're thinking about their mortgage or they're thinking about their own responsibility and stress. And the amount of problem a business owner solves in a day, it's like so many. If we get the team to shoulder, then they'll think we're in trouble all the time when it's just like business as usual. So I think it's important to have that outlet for sure.
I love that thought about failing publicly or succeeding publicly on the flip side too, right? But it is a vulnerable act.
But there's a stigma to that too, right? If you're rich, some people have weird relationship with money. They may judge you differently if they see you win in public as well, right?
Absolutely.
And so they both have their good and bad side to them.
Yeah. I think it's key to have people around you that you can discuss these things with, because a lot of people just don't understand if you haven't been in it, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's, we're sheltered from a lot when we don't work inside the business. Yeah.
How do you, that's an interesting, choosing what to share with your staff and with your team and that sort of thing versus shouldering it yourself.
Yeah.
How do you make those decisions?
I try to share what people have context around, so that they can understand and analyze it on their own. If it needs context, then it needs you to be right there when you share it and have the time to explain it. So if you don't have the space to do it properly, you probably shouldn't do it. Because as soon as people don't have context, they'll run a storyline. They have other worries they have different biases, and I think that's when it's a little bit dangerous. So I'd share anything, as long as I have the space to give the context to the person, especially when you're talking about financial and stuff, because it's so confusing. It takes a long time to understand all those numbers.
you need to be able to give the full picture if you're going to give the picture.
Exactly. Otherwise, it's a disservice to everyone.
Have you had an experience where you've learned that the hard way?
Not crazy one, but you can tell, like you'll share a P&L with the team or how well you've done without sharing the expenses. And then all of a sudden they just take those numbers in a crazy place and it's like, oh, this is not what's happening. And then you can see like it can grow a little bit of toxicity until they understand it's like, no, this is not exactly how that works. Like for us, for example, we work the repping side of our business. We help connecting a retailer with a brand. We make a sale and we get a commission. So if we sell $100,000 to someone, we don't make $100,000. We only make $7,000 right? Or $6,000, depending on the commission. But a new team member may think we just made like $100,000, and it's like, no. It's just a fraction of this whole thing that we get, So this is it. Or like I've seen it with retailer where they think we make way more money than we do, right? And they expect us to wine and dine them to the hell. And it's like, I want to do this, but at some point we need to also balance this out. So
I'm curious about the role of marketing in your business. And what I mean by that is obviously the brands that you work with that you represent have their own marketing assets and that sort of thing, obviously, mm-hmm. right? And likely you're piggybacking a little bit on those assets. But how do you then choose to market your agency? What's the difference there, and what's the importance of doing so separately?
Our job with our brand is essentially to sort of the telephone game, right? Like we reproduce the message. We do all the grassroots marketing. So we're at events. We help retailer make their space look better. We help showcase the brand. But that's really directed by the brand. None of it is our creative, if you like. Yeah. We not used to talk about Mountain Exposure or Mountain X super publicly in the early days because the brand is the hero and each brand should feel like they're your only brand. And when I'm in the outdoor research tent, on the icebreaker tent, talking about those brands, I'm not talking about the other. I'm Mr. Icebreaker that day, right? And that's like our main focus. In recent year though, we started to slowly bring up the name Mountain Exposure so that it would mean something in our industry as us holding a standard that's a little bit higher or have our own style of working, have a great team. And I want people in Quebec to know Mountain Exposure exists even though they don't really work with us on the rep side of the business. So we really try to like sort of bring the profile of Mountain X as an agency but without casting a shadow on our brand, because that's our number one priority.
And what's the benefit of you focusing on your own marketing? As you said, over the past couple of years, you've kind of made an effort in that front.
Yeah, so we switched a bit like this, and we're not done this, but like sort of the thinking right now is, if you go on our website, it's not really focused on our brand, but nobody goes on our website for our brands. They're already purchasing those brands. The idea is when you go on our website, maybe you're a brand, and you're like, oh, I want to work with those people. And this is the shift that we're trying to create for ourselves. And which is funny talking to web designer because they're like, oh, we're going to bring you leads. I was like, whoa, I only want 1 or 2 leads. Yeah. I want a great, awesome lead though. So like, this is what we're working towards there.
Yeah. And just thinking out loud here, so correct me if I'm wrong, but it's almost like you could be marketing towards your talent too, just like you have a pipeline, because people, for example, people could want to work with Osprey, for example, right? Mm-hmm. Or they could want to work with Mountain X in some capacity, but you're almost marketing to that person.
Yes,
does that make sense?
And then like there's this like word of mouth thing, and there's a lot of things happening there. But like essentially, we sort of want to market the way we work, and then our brands are an expression of that. Because that's how those brands probably work too, because we're a good fit with each other. And then hopefully we attract a similar type brand.
How many brands are you working with at any given time?
So we work with, so we haven't talked about this, but we have a bike side of our business. We have an outdoor side of the business. On the bike side, we work with 3 or 4 brands. On the outdoor side, we work with 6 main brand and then some smaller brand. But in that, we have 5 clients. Some are distributors, so this distributor have multiple brand and some other brand directly. And outdoor, our 3 key brand is Outdoor Research, Osprey, Smart Wool Icebreaker, which are together now. And these are the bigger brand that we do on that side. On the bike side, we work for a distributor called QBP. They're from the US. And they have hundreds of brands, I think, in the main distribution. But for us, is the brand that they own, that they distribute in Canada, plus a handful of key brand, like in the P&A space, which is part and accessory. And then we also have our own distribution that we do out of Calgary. We started a couple of years ago, where we buy product and resell it. And there we work with 4 brands. And the key one is Ibis Cycle from California.
So many different aspects to the business.
Yeah, it's wild. And this is what an agency is, right? None of those guys can do this on their own, or could at the time they hired us. Some could probably now because we got them to that size, but no one can do it on their own. But we pull all the resources for everyone. So then when somebody drives to Fort Mac, they're not driving there to talk 15 minutes about one thing. They can pull all the resources, go talk about 3 or 4 brands, and it works. Nobody could afford to do this as their own, but with us, they get representation across all of Western Canada. And that's sort of the model, right? And then hopefully that investment, eventually it's like when I started with Outdoor Research, I think we had probably 6 or 7 dealers in Alberta. It was really, really small. And now it's at a great size. We do really well with them. They do well with us. And now it's the profitable side of it, right? We invested in the first 6, 7 years, and now we get to profit from that investment of time and energy.
It really is. I mean, we were talking earlier about a long game and kind of like delaying the gratification.
Yes.
Seems like every relationship, or at least Outdoor Research, I would imagine more, is that way.
Absolutely. I was writing notes thinking about this conversation this morning, and Simon Sinek book, but like the infinite game is really what it's about here. It's always about I talk about relationship selling a lot. And that's what relationship selling is when you're thinking long-term with the client to try to help them and benefit them for a long time. You're not just doing a one-time transaction with them. And it's great because we have all these great relationships. A lot of these people are our friends. We go do stuff with them. We know them. We know their kids. Like, there's a lot of amazing thing about relationship selling that are great side effect, if you like.
I completely agree, and we take a similar stance at our business. Some people might argue that there's a line to which this person is your client versus your friend versus whatever else.
Yeah.
What's your take on that?
I'm not friend with everyone, but I'm certainly friendly with everyone. It's kind of how I look at it. There's people that you're going to be naturally friends with, and that's great, and others that you have great relationship with. I don't think that's one excludes the other necessarily. I think it's just important to understand the boundaries. And some people just won't let that happen, and that's okay. But everybody needs to be treated well, I think. And that's, yeah.
When I think about distribution and that sort of thing, especially with companies that are based in the United States or whatever, outside of where we are, right? Is there benefit for these businesses to partner with you because you know the Canadian market so well? And is it a different method of selling to customers? Like
the sales side of the business, that's what we do. That's what we're good at. And that's what we do is grow business for people. When somebody comes from another country specifically, but sometime inside the country, they're missing a few things. Maybe they can't sell in our currency because their system doesn't allow it. Maybe there's tariff, which is a popular word these days, coming from inbound from the US to Canada. Or they paid tariff in the US and then they're reselling it to us and they have to include that price in it. French language, customer lists. For all those reasons, and then maybe they need a subsidiary here to do it. Like all those business setup are super costly for a new business to come in or developing a new business in Canada and using us as a distributor so to bypass all of this. Plus we buy the product from them. So they get a PO, they know exactly how much money they're going to make, and then they can move on with it. And then it's our problem from there to make it successful in market. Obviously, those who are team player with us, we succeed a lot more with. But that's the difference. If they're gonna, it's the same thing as pooling resources again to help somebody be successful in market.
I mean, managing all these different elements of the business must be quite taxing for you.
Oh, we have a team. I'm not by myself.
No, for sure. But I mean, even just knowing all the different avenues and that sort of thing, and keeping touch with everything. How do you manage your time and decide what you're going to work on any given day?
First thing is like try to be as niche as possible. Like we're mountain sport only, right? That takes a lot of retailer out of the equation. Everybody on the team is competent with the product we have. So when you bring something new, it's not confusing things. Managing time, I'm really big on the Eisenhower matrix. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that. This is a dyslexic nightmare, but essentially you got a quadrant with non-urgent and urgent and important and not important. And then things that are obviously important and urgent needs to be addressed now. So I usually, if I'm feeling like pretty cloudy or like there's too much going on and I'm starting to stress out, and it usually, because I have a lot of open loop, a lot of things that are not done, I'll do a brainstorm of everything that's on my list, from mowing the lawn to packing my car for the next trip to calling this client. I'll write them all down and then I'll put them in the matrix. And some of those things will be not urgent, not important. They'll probably get booted out. Some of those things are urgent, not important. Or did I just say that? Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're important and not urgent. Maybe I'll delegate those to somebody else, right? And then there's the top right quadrant, which is like not urgent, but important. And that's like the planning, the big picture thinking, the thing that I never seem like you're in a big rush to do them. But they're probably the most important thing you can do as an entrepreneur, right? Try to think, oh, what we do today is going to affect tomorrow and next year and whatnot. And I try to bring myself back in that quadrant as much as I can. And sometimes you get 10 minutes in a day on that, or 20 minutes. But that planning is what makes, and being prepared is what makes the biggest difference, I find.
Yeah. I really like the way that you just put that, because I think everybody naturally in that matrix gravitates towards the fact that the highest, or like the highest priority and most urgent, or highest impact, most urgent, is the thing that should be done right away. But that can potentially be delegated. Whereas the strategy side of things is, as you become a more mature entrepreneur, you realize that the strategy is arguably the most important, because like you said, that is the thing that's going to drive the next day.
And it's more subtle stuff. And you need to slow down for it and really think of what you're trying to put through, right, to the market. So I think it's important to really take the time to do that well. I think reflection is really important. I'm big on bullet journal. I don't know if you're journal.
No, that's one that I'm not familiar with.
Oh, great. Yeah. So as like I'm a little bit dyslexic, a little bit ADHD, I'm sure there's like all of us that are entrepreneur, like somewhere on that spectrum. So I've always quite struggled with some of those things. So from early on when I was a guide, a big thing in guiding is you have a notebook and you write down the event of the day. So, oh, it rained, oh, it's really cloudy, this happened. So if something, God forbid, happened, you can have a track record of what's happened. You know, we were late, we rushed there, we did this. And that may explain why you had an accident or something. Never had that happen, never had to use it, but it was great. Or sometimes you're like, oh, I did this thing last year, let's go look what it was like, see what it's like. So I've always carried a book around. And so I had hunches that that book was a thing, but I never really knew until recently, after I read, so there's the bullet journal technique, is it Ryder Carroll wrote the book about it. And it's just a methodology to write note in a book, essentially. But it's also more of a practice. I wouldn't call it meditation, but almost to that point. Because what you do is you write your note, you use the methodology so you know what's an event, you know what's a feeling, you know what's a to-do. And then weekly, you review those. And then monthly, you review them as well. And the reflection, to me, is what most people are missing. Everybody's focused on capture. And if you'd use like a digital to-do list, they're awesome at capturing. And then you end up with this pile of shit that you have to do. And then you're stressing because you're not getting it done, right? And then what's important is to take all those things and boil them down to the 3 things I'm going to do today. And I used to do 3 things I want to accomplish today, and now I'm down to 1. Like sometimes it's just about doing that one thing, or this week doing the one thing, right? But that comes from being able to reflect on what's happened. I found that really, really helpful for me.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Most people don't take the time to reflect, even if they are taking notes actively, right? It's like you might take notes and then try to recall from memory, which is defeats the purpose of taking the notes.
Yeah, it helps anchoring the memory, but the reflection, like so many times I will write a task 3 or 4 times, and then one day I'll be like, you know what? That's not that important anymore. Or I'll review it and be like, no, that's not a thing. We're just gonna scratch that out. I want to put a small artworks beside bullet journaling. If you go on YouTube and you YouTube bullet journaling, you'll find these things with flowers and like beautiful drawing and stuff. That is one way to bullet journal, like these really artistic journal, but that is not the point. The point is try to go back to those Ryder Carroll videos, like the basic methodology, and then you can make it pretty if you like, if that's your thing. I collect little mementos in mine, like took a lesson the other day. I put the business card for the lesson in there. So when I review it at the end of the year, I was like, oh yeah, I remember I took this lesson. That was cool. But like I'm not drawing flowers all day.
But that'd probably be something good for association learners, right? Like visual learners. Like
yeah, I do it all in my journal and then you flip through and you're like, oh, there's a bike here. That's what I wrote that note and I know it's there. But yeah, that's been really helpful for me. I'd say half our team probably uses that technique. We print books, like notebooks here, so that the team have mountain exposure notebook, because I really believe in the note-taking. And plus, it's not as offensive, right? When you're sitting in front of people, like you have a book on your lap, it's not distracting. I'm not feeling like you're reading on your phone.
Oh, yeah, like right? Texting on my lap or something exactly. Like that. Yeah.
So I try to sit in meetings with pen and paper when I can, or an ink tablet. There's a different version of this, but I think it's the same here.
Well, interestingly enough, like I could take a photo of my notes that I take today, right? And have AI analyze it or whatever the case may be. Yeah.
What's getting even better with this is now you're able to like maybe compile your note in Evernote, for example, and then use this to research your own thought. Amazing, right?
On the note of technology and that sort of thing, what kind of technologies are you using, or emerging technologies like AI or anything similar, are you using for yourself to kind of boost your own productivity and effectiveness, but also the business?
I do a fair amount for myself with the basic stuff. Like English being my second language is still a struggle some days. So it's really nice to kind of rewrite something. And that it can end up being quite productive. Like we use all the Google product here. But we haven't gone to, and this is kind of some stuff I want to spend more time on, but in our business, it's still pretty relationship focused. So we're not like about to farm it out to AI, but certainly encourage the team to do research and certain things that way because it's much more effective. Find it can be, I've built a sales course for the team the last couple of years and really using this to kind of like beside you to kind of check your ideas, add a little bit to them. It can be really, really great that way.
There's so many industries that are being disrupted for better or for worse via this technology, right? Do you foresee that happening in your industry at all? Or do you think it'll just be a tool because everything that you do is so relationship driven?
I got my own take on AI. I think it's incredibly useful. I think we can only consume so much information. At some point, it's like, sure, you're making more information, but who's reading it, who's consuming it? I'm not sure that efficiency, like we talk about reviewing your notes or whatever, I'm not sure that efficiency is the all got of productivity, right? It's being selective that is. So I think if you can't process the information, I'm not seeing exactly how that's going to equate sometime. So I think we may realize that it's a great tool, but that's pretty much all it is, right? Maybe I'm gullible, but I certainly wouldn't want to be a bookkeeper or an accountant, right? Or a lawyer. Like, I think that those places, if it's relationship based, I think people are looking for experience, and we sort of browse through this a little bit. And people want story to tell, and you don't get great story to tell from the interaction with AI. You get it from great experience you have with people, And I think if we focus on that a little bit, I think we can really enhance the experience.
I couldn't agree more that people buy experience, people buy from people, storytelling is critical. And that's something that I actually noticed in your website that is unique maybe to the way that you're positioning yourself is in the storytelling aspect. Walk me through that. What does storytelling mean to your business and you?
I think we're campfire people, right? We're outdoor people. Like our main, I always tell the team, like the one activity that joins us all, if you're a climber, you're a biker and stuff, is camping. And at the center of this is the campfire, right? And there's no better analogy to this. Like we all love sitting there and talking smack about whatever happened and how big the thing you did was or wasn't, right? And so we love story. I think that's how we communicate. It's also using story to sell is incredible because it's so much easier than trying to understand number for people. I can tell you about this jacket that is 800 downfill with a 15 denier fabric. Or I can tell you it's like perfect jacket to go hike up Sulphur Mountain for you when it's -5 in the sun. You've pictured that place right now. I'm not sure if you've been to Sulphur Mountain before, but maybe, and then now you know kind of what I'm talking about. It's a lot harder to do by just spewing numbers and spec and things to people, right? So I think it's really practical to use story in the sales context, but it's also elicit feeling, and people buy with feelings, not with rationality. If everybody was rational, our job would be a lot easier, harder, I should say.
Yeah.
Much more challenging, for sure.
Is that something that you deploy in all aspects of the business, the storytelling piece? Because you're absolutely right. I mean, everybody should, right?
It's something we talk about with the team. It's not like we talk about this week because you want to write process about everything and you want to write best practice about everything, and it's more of we try to choose people that are like this so that it's easy to them, that they like talking with people, they're extroverted, and not that introverted and not good at it. I find sometimes introverted people are awesome in the business because they know when to strike. And when they speak, it matters. So that's really great as well. We just try to amplify that through their own style. It's not like you're going to tell a story about, like, we're not going to process that because it's not genuine.
Circling back on kind of your hiring process, you can determine if people are that way naturally based on spending the 4 interviews or going outdoors with them or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, absolutely. And it also tells you the type of story people tell you, tells you a lot about them, right? If they're the center of that story, if a friend was, if it was a self-deprecating and funny, or if it was just like making themselves look better, all those things, right?
What does success look like to you?
I've thought a fair amount about this, and to me, success is agency, is when I'm where I am, doing what I want to do, when I want to do it. That's to me, that's my definition of success. And that doesn't mean doing something that's fun or nice or pleasant. That sometimes it's about doing the hard thing. It's because you chose to do the hard thing. So that's my definition of success.
Over time, has that definition changed?
I used to think it was freedom. And then I realized I was like, no, that's not quite it, because freedom is just nice. And it's not always nice. Sometimes it's tough, but it's rewarding too when it's tough and you come out the other side, right? So to me, it's truly about doing what I want to do and on my own terms, sort of thing.
I like that caveat of that might not always be the positive thing, right? Maybe, or not necessarily not positive, but the hard thing.
It can be unpleasant. That's okay to be uncomfortable. And sitting here is not necessarily comfortable, right? Like that, but sometimes you gotta put yourself in that's where you get growth, right? Is when you pass your limit a little bit. If you overstretch your limit, you may crash. have an accent, but you got to flirt with the line a little bit. And I think it's important to do things that are hard and difficult.
How do you ensure that you're pushing yourself to the best of your ability?
I think we know when we do. It's pretty obvious. You don't want to do it.
Yeah.
But to me, like, if I was like, when there's a challenge, or when it's tough, or when it doesn't look great, there's probably an opportunity there. And somebody said I can't remember where that's from, but opportunity often disguised as work or something along those lines. And to me, it's like when things are difficult, challenging, uncomfortable, it's probably worth being a little bit curious and seeing why, because there's probably more to it, and there's probably a lot of people that won't do it because of that. And that's a great place to start to find the opportunity. I always find with our team, I probably sound like a broken record to them right now, but like, when there's a problem, that's our opportunity to show our worth, When everything's going well, there's nothing too special to do. But when the shit hits the fan and deliveries don't show up or stuff's broken, that's when we show our worth. That's when we like add value, right? And so it's in all those little aspects, I think.
What's next for you? What's coming down the pipeline? What are you working on?
So our distribution business is somewhat new, a couple of years old. We really got interested in that through the pandemic because we wanted to ensure our own destiny a little bit. Pandemic was really scary for us. There was a time where our order books went to zero. And I was updating the team weekly on like, hey, we have 3 months worth of salary in the bank. So we're good for 3 months, And then I kept doing this and we got to like 4 weeks. And then the order book started showing up again and we started reselling the stuff that people had canceled. So in the distribution business, because we purchased the product, the relationships are different. We can ensure a little bit more stability in the business. And that can keep both sides of the business healthy. So we want to grow this. We want to grow the agency side to be across the country. Right now we're Manitoba West there, and then we have partners that we use out east. But we want to be a Canadian business, and we're focused on being across the country.
What are the barriers to doing that?
Some of the contracts we have, the relationship is just a thing that's going to happen organically, I think. And then having the right team, and et cetera.
Yeah, the through line of today's conversation, the right team, the right people.
Yeah, it's pretty much
yeah.
Broken record.
No, all good.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you for taking the time to do this and having this conversation and sharing your insights.
Yeah, I'd love to do it again. That was fantastic. Thank you.